I love the change of seasons, and autumn has a special place in my heart. It's the time to get cozy, do some baking, have loads of pumpkin spice latte, and just watch Gilmore Girls with a comforting meal. So today we're getting in the autumn mood with some autumnal recipes that I've never made before that I thought would inspire you to get in the kitchen and try a new recipe yourself and enjoy all the autumnal vibes. Let's get started. We're starting with a kolokithopita, aka a pumpkin pie. To begin, I start by making my dough for the filo. In a big bowl, I added some all-purpose flour, a bit of salt, olive oil, and some lukewarm water. I brought the mixture together using my hands and kneaded it for a couple of minutes until it's nice soft dough. I then let it rest on the side while I prepared my pie filling. For the filling, I used some canned pumpkin puree, semolina flour, raisins, walnuts, ground cloves, cinnamon, and pumpkin pie spice mix. I started by emptying 3 cans of pumpkin puree in a big bowl. I then added a cup of raisins. I then measured about a cup of walnuts and chopped them up in smaller pieces. You could also add them to a food chopper too, but you don't want to chop them too finely, so I find it easier to control if I chop them myself. I then added the walnuts to the bowl, and then added half a cup of semolina and 1 cup of sugar. Lastly, I added the spices. I was almost out of cinnamon, so I just emptied as much as I could, and then added the pumpkin pie spice mix and a tiny pinch of cloves. I also added a bit of salt. I gave the mixture a good mix to make sure all the ingredients are mixed well. I let the mixture to the side, and now it's time to open our filo. I sprinkled some flour onto my surface and then divided the dough into 2 little balls. I then used my thin rolling pin to open it up. My grandma has showed me this method to open the filo, where you roll the filo in the rolling pin and then with a fast motion you let it open on the other side. It's a bit difficult to describe, but hopefully you can see how I do it on the video. I don't know if everyone opens filo like this, but that's how I was taught and I find it very easy and satisfying to do. I then grabbed a big baking dish, added loads of olive oil at the bottom and spread it around evenly with my hands. I added the bottom layer of the pie, and yes, it's very uneven and imperfect, but it doesn't matter, you can just mold it and make sure everything is covered by the filo with the bottom and top layer. I then added more olive oil and followed it up with all the filling mixture. I then added the top layer and added more olive oil. And don't be afraid to use lots of olive oil, I feel like pita needs lots to bake properly. I didn't add enough here, so halfway through baking I did add a bit more. I then made some marks where we will be cutting the pie later, which also helps with releasing some of the steam while it's baking. I then put it in a preheated oven to bake. So I've never made a pumpkin pita before, so we'll see how it goes. It smelled amazing though before I put it in the oven. Yeah, I'm excited. My grandma Janula used to make it and checked a few recipes online, and most of them have rice, but I didn't want to put rice. I thought it was a bit savory more with the rice, so I got rid of it. So bye bye rice. Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm so hungry. Once the pie was ready, I took it out of the oven and served myself a big piece. I sprinkled some icing sugar on top and was ready to enjoy. It's much bigger than I thought it would be. I don't know how I'll eat it, but let's give it a try. It's still hot as well, so I'll probably burn myself. I like it. Oh, it's very good. Success. But it's good. I like it. It's so good. I didn't expect it to be this good. And I think it's vegan, right? Yeah. Pretty sure it's vegan. So yeah, it's amazing. And the filo is actually very good. I think a bit of ouzo would have been better, but I'll need to find some somewhere for next pita. But yeah, for now, very good. Oh. We're now making one of my favorite and most comforting Greek dishes, Kokkinisto, aka a beef stew. I grabbed a celery stick and some carrots from the fridge, an onion and some garlic, and of course our beef. So I was watching a Julia Child recipe. I think it was her beef, how do you say it? Beef bourguignon, and it said that you have to pat the beef dry. So I've never done that. I've actually never made Kokkinisto, so but I'm gonna follow Julia Child's tip. It was another recipe I was looking online, and it said the beef needs to be in room temperature before you start sizzling it or like sauteing it. and I forgot, of course, so I've put it out now. I'm gonna chop the vegetables and then see. Hopefully that's enough time to come into room temperature, so let's go. I always like to have 2 bowls when I'm chopping, one for the onion skins and ends of vegetables and one for my chopped vegetables. I started by cutting the onion in small pieces and then adding into my bowl. I then continued with the carrots and the celery. I peeled my carrots and then chopped them in small pieces. I did the same with the celery and then added it to my bowl. I then grabbed a couple of garlic cloves and pressed them using my garlic press. And then it was time to pat dry the meat. I emptied all of the pieces in a bowl and then used some kitchen towel to press all the pieces to get rid of the excess water and added it to a different bowl. I grabbed a big saucepan, added some olive oil and let it heat up. Once the oil was hot, I added the meat and let it cook. I feel like I've already failed the recipe because it said you want to avoid boiling the meat, and I can see it's boiling, but I'm sure it will taste nice. I think it needed a bigger pan, which I don't have, or I think if you had the meat in bigger pieces then it would fit everything, but now it's like tiny chunk, so it couldn't go all the way to the pan. I'm sure it will taste nice, but yeah, I'm telling you so you learn from my mistakes. We're doing this together. I then emptied the meat in a big bowl, even though I probably should have let it get rid of all the water and have some coloring around it, but yeah. To the same saucepan, I added some olive oil and added my veggies. I seasoned with salt and pepper and let them cook through. I then poured a big glass of wine and added it to the stew back with the meat. I then added 2 cans of chopped tomatoes. For spices, I used some bay leaves and a cinnamon stick and gave the mixture a good mix. It ended up being a bit chaotic, I just threw everything in at the end, so fingers crossed. I think I let it stew for like a couple of hours, so it smells good though, especially with the wine. After a few hours, the sauce had reduced and the whole house smelled amazing. I added some boiling water to a separate pan and seasoned with salt. I then grabbed some pasta and added them to boil. And now we're ready to serve. I added some pasta to my plate and then topped with the beef stew. And of course, you can't have Kokkinisto without cheese, so I grated some parmesan, although if you have misithra, that would be even more authentic and delicious. My Kokkinisto is ready, let's have a bite. Very good. But I must say, I must be honest, the meat is quite tough, and I think it's because I didn't follow what the recipe said. It's still tasty, but it's not like falling off, which is interesting because I thought because it's small pieces it wouldn't even have that issue, but I learned from my mistakes. And the pasta is amazing. It's from Lidl, but so good. But now let's mash it in with half. You like? Yeah, I made a pizza. Do you want to try? For our autumnal pizza, we will be making a butternut squash base, so I started by cutting a butternut squash in 2 and scooping out all the seeds. I then put the 2 pieces of squash in a baking dish lined with baking paper and added it to the oven to bake until you can easily pierce the squash with a fork. While the squash was cooking, I made my pizza dough. I added some lukewarm water in a bowl and then added some olive oil and sugar and mixed it around. Lastly, I added the yeast and let it on the side to activate for a few minutes. I then measured about 300 grams of strong bread flour in a big bowl and added some salt. I added the yeast mixture in the flour and brought it together using my hands. Why do I always wear black when I'm doing baking? or doing filo or pizza. I don't know, but I think I need to put an apron on and put my hair back. Let's do this. Knead for 10 minutes if I can make it. How long it's been? A minute. It's only been another minute, oh my god. You know what I think it is? I think this is too high for me. I'm short. Honestly, the kitchens in Greece are so much shorter. This is for Vikings. A damp tea towel is best. That's what I've done. And we let it on the side, somewhere warm, which we're in England, so. After about 45 minutes, my butternut squash was ready, so I got it out of the oven and put it in a plate. I used the spoon to spoon out the squash and added it in a separate bowl. It's best to leave the squash cool down for this so you can handle it. I know it's steaming here, and yes, I definitely was burning my hands, so don't do as I do. I then added some olive oil and salt to the squash and gave it a good mix. For my toppings, I will be using roquefort, mozzarella, and of course andouille, which if you've never tried before, it's honestly the best thing to put on a pizza. Once my pizza had time to rise, I added some flour to my working space to open my pizza. I separated the dough into two and started opening the dough with a rolling pin. I also stretch out the dough using my hands and try to do this method where you push the knuckles in the dough and then try to stretch it out, although I find it quite difficult, so I rely more on the rolling pin. I then added my pizza in a pizza pan and added the butternut squash on top. I spread it around evenly and then grated my mozzarella cheese. I then cut a bit of andouille and removed it from its skin before adding little pieces around the pizza. Andouille has a strong flavor, so you only need tiny pieces of it. And talking of strong flavor, I then added my roquefort too. I put the pizza in a preheated oven to bake until the dough seems cooked and the cheese is all nice and melty. That's about 20 minutes for my oven. This is such a nice pizza combo and such a nice change to the usual tomato base, so definitely give it a go. It's honestly one of my favorite pizzas.
Okay, yeah?
It's like the Napoli Central.
Oh, you ate it? Wasn't can?
I hope you enjoyed this video and got some inspiration to try out some new recipes, and I would love to hear what's your favorite autumnal recipe in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, and I'll see you on the next one.